I still remember that searing moment as if it were carved in fire. In the dim light of our modest living room, my wife let out a dismissive laugh when I first pitched my startup idea. A laugh that echoed in my ears and stung like betrayal. "You really think this will work?" she had sneered, her amusement mingling with disbelief. In that instant, every hope I'd nurtured felt fragile, as if it might shatter into a million pieces. But deep inside, her derision ignited something powerful. A burning resolve to prove her wrong, to transform that very doubt into a success that would not only silence her laughter but leave her asking for a share of what I'd built. Back then, the startup was nothing more than a glimmer of an idea scribbled in the margins of my notebook, a bold dream that seemed laughably naive to anyone who looked too closely. I had poured every ounce of passion into it, convinced that innovation and relentless hard work would eventually tip the scales in my favor. I remember spending countless nights at my cramped desk, fueled by nothing more than caffeine and a stubborn belief that I was onto something big. I wasn't born into wealth or handed opportunities on a silver platter. I had to forge my own path through sheer grit and determination. Every setback, every dismissive remark, even her laughter, became the fuel that propelled me forward. In those early days, the vision of my startup was raw and unpolished. I was juggling a full-time job while dedicating my spare moments to coding, planning, and dreaming up a product that I believed could change lives. Friends and acquaintances raised eyebrows at my unwavering optimism, and even my closest allies questioned whether I was chasing an impossible fantasy. Yet, amid the skepticism and the endless challenges, I felt an inner conviction that the world was ready for what I had to offer, a solution born out of genuine need and innovation. I refused to let their doubts or her mocking laughter define my future. Every rejection, every no from potential investors stung sharply, but it also steeled my resolve. I spent hours refining my pitch, poring over market research, and learning from every failed attempt. I transformed every critique into a stepping stone, adjusting my approach and relentlessly iterating on my concept. The journey was grueling, filled with long nights of solitude punctuated by moments of intense clarity. I remember the days when exhaustion weighed me down like a leaden blanket, yet in those very moments, I discovered reserves of strength I never knew I possessed. Slowly but surely, the seeds I had planted began to sprout. I secured a small round of funding from an angel investor who believed in my vision, and with that, the first real steps toward building my startup began. I rented a tiny office space, where the hum of computers and the soft chatter of a few dedicated team members replaced the silence of my lonely nights. Every small victory, be it a successful beta test or positive feedback from an early adopter, was a quiet triumph that reaffirmed my belief in the idea. With each milestone, I felt the weight of doubt lifting, replaced by a growing sense of purpose. The turning point came when our product finally gained traction. Word of mouth spread, and suddenly, what was once a fringe project became the talk of the town. Industry blogs began to take notice, and soon interest from larger investors started pouring in. I remember the exhilaration of signing that first major deal, the moment when I realized that my once dismissed idea had blossomed into a venture worth millions. It was a bittersweet victory, a validation of my hard work that was also a stark reminder of the laughter that had once filled our living room. Now, as I watched my startup's valuation soar, I couldn't help but think back to that day when her laughter had almost broken me. Instead, it had become the catalyst for a transformation I could have never imagined. As success began to materialize, life took on an entirely new complexion. I was invited to speak at conferences, share my story on panels, and even mentor other budding entrepreneurs. Each event, each handshake, and every word of encouragement from strangers served as a reminder that I had carved out a space for myself in a world that had once seemed so indifferent to my dreams. I embraced the journey with a humility born of hardship, knowing that every setback was a lesson and every triumph was a testament to the power of perseverance. Yet, success has a way of rewriting the rules of relationships. It wasn't long before the irony of fate came crashing down once again. One crisp morning, as I was finalizing a deal with a major investor, I received a call from my wife. Her tone was tentative, laced with the kind of regret that stings deeper than any insult. "I heard about your success," she said softly, almost inaudibly, as if afraid to break the fragile silence between us. I'm wondering if you might share some of that wealth with me." The words hit me like a punch in the gut, a desperate request from the woman who once laughed at my dream. It was surreal. The very person who had dismissed me was now seeking a slice of the pie I had worked so hard to create. For a long time, I wrestled with a storm of emotions in the wake of that call. Part of me wanted to relish the irony, to take a quiet, private pleasure in knowing that the laughter that once mocked me was now replaced with a pleading tone. Yet another part of me felt a profound sadness, for the love we had lost, for the opportunities squandered, and for the bitter lesson that sometimes, success cannot mend all the wounds of the past. I remembered the countless nights of isolation, the relentless struggle to build something from nothing, and all the sacrifices I had made along the way. Each of those memories was a silent reminder of the cost of dreams, and now, they were compounded by the painful realization that she wanted in on the fruits of my labor. In those moments of reflection, I began to understand that true success is not measured by the amount of money in your bank account or the accolades on your shelf. It is measured by the resilience of your spirit and the integrity with which you forge your own destiny. I had built my startup brick by brick, weathering storms of doubt and criticism, and now, as I stood on the precipice of unimaginable success, I realized that I could not let someone who had never truly believed in me share in the spoils of my hard-won journey. It was a decision fraught with emotion, yet rooted in the deep, unyielding truth that my worth was not for sale. In the weeks that followed that fateful call, I immersed myself even further in my work, seeking solace in the relentless pursuit of innovation and excellence. I took every setback and every moment of betrayal as fuel to drive me onward. I began to see that the path I had chosen was mine alone, a path that demanded not only business acumen and creativity but a steadfast belief in my own value. My team and I expanded our operations, scaled our product offerings, and pushed into new markets. Each success was a reaffirmation of my vision, a quiet statement that I had not only survived the harshest of rejections but had transformed them into the very foundation of my empire. Every board meeting, every investor call, became a battleground where I defended not just my startup, but the essence of who I was, a man who had turned derision into determination and heartache into hard-earned triumph. I forged partnerships, secured additional rounds of funding, and watched in awe as our valuation climbed steadily into the millions. With every milestone achieved, the memory of her laughter became a distant echo, a painful reminder that had propelled me to heights I had once deemed unreachable. Yet, as the success of my startup soared, so did the complexities of my personal life. The call from my wife had opened a Pandora's box of unresolved emotions, a torrent of memories and what-ifs that I had long tried to bury beneath the rubble of my past. I found myself questioning not only the nature of our failed marriage but also the sacrifices I had made along the way. Had I given too much of myself in pursuit of a dream that ultimately belonged only to me? Or was it that her laughter had been the very spark that ignited the fire of my ambition? These questions haunted me in the quiet hours of the night as I sat alone in my office, staring out at a city that now gleamed with the promise of a future I had built from scratch. In those solitary moments I began to write, journaling my thoughts, fears, and triumphs with an honesty that was both cathartic and revealing. I poured out every doubt, every fleeting regret, and every moment of fierce joy that had marked my journey. Through these words, I began to understand that the success of my startup was not just a measure of financial gain, but a testament to the strength of my character. I had faced down the ridicule, the betrayal, and the unrelenting pressures of a world that had once told me I wasn't enough. And in doing so, I had redefined what it meant to succeed. This chapter of my life became a mosaic of relentless perseverance and quiet vindication, a tapestry woven from the threads of countless sleepless nights, fervent pitches, and small victories that, over time, built into something monumental. I realized that my journey was not about proving her wrong, but about proving to myself that I had the power to create something extraordinary from the ashes of our past. Every time I closed a deal, every time I saw our product featured in a major publication, I felt a surge of triumph. A reminder that I had, indeed, built an empire that was entirely my own. As I continued to scale my business, I found myself increasingly immersed in the world of innovation and entrepreneurship. Conferences, networking events, and industry panels became my new arenas, where I shared my story not as a tale of revenge but as a narrative of resilience and rebirth. I spoke about the importance of self-belief, of the courage to pursue one's passion despite the odds, and of the transformative power of failure when it is met with unwavering determination. My words resonated with countless aspiring entrepreneurs who saw in my journey a reflection of their own struggles and dreams. In those moments, I realized that my success was not just about financial gain, it was about inspiring others to believe in their own potential, to see that every setback is merely a stepping stone on the path to greatness. The irony of it all was not lost on me. The very person who had laughed at my startup, dismissing my vision as a foolish fantasy, was now forced to confront the undeniable reality of my success. And while the bitterness of that memory still lingered like a shadow in the back of my mind, I had learned to let it fuel rather than define me. I refused to allow resentment to cloud the joy of my achievements. Instead, I embraced the lesson that sometimes, the harshest criticisms are the ones that drive us to prove ourselves in ways we never thought possible. Now, as I stand on the threshold of a future that glitters with the promise of innovation and success, I know that every tear shed, every laugh that once mocked me, has played its part in shaping the man I have become. My startup, once ridiculed and dismissed, is now a thriving enterprise valued in the millions, a living testament to the power of resilience, passion, and unyielding self-belief. And while my wife's laughter once cut deep, it now serves as a quiet reminder of the obstacles I overcame. A reminder that I have the strength to turn even the most painful betrayals into stepping stones toward success. This is where part one of my journey ends. A journey of vision, struggle, and quiet triumph that transformed mockery into motivation and doubt into determination. As I close this chapter, I carry with me the knowledge that my worth is not defined by the opinions of others, but by the relentless pursuit of a dream that is uniquely my own. In the coming days, I know there will be new challenges and new opportunities to further prove that success is not a fleeting moment, but a continuous evolution built on hard work and self-belief. And as I prepare to step into the next phase of my story, I do so with the quiet confidence that comes from knowing I have built something that is truly mine, a legacy of innovation and resilience that will endure long after the echoes of laughter have faded. I still recall the moment I realized that the roar of success was now an anthem to my resilience. It was early one brisk autumn morning when I opened my email to find a message that made my heart pause, a formal offer from a major investment firm, affirming that my startup's valuation had soared into the millions. The confirmation was a sharp contrast to the derisive laughter I'd once heard echoing in our living room. Now, my company was on the verge of becoming a household name. And as if that weren't enough, I soon discovered that my ex-wife, whose mocking disbelief had once stung so deeply, was now calling, her tone laced with desperation as she pleaded for a share of my newfound fortune. The irony was almost too heavy to bear. I'd poured my soul into every late-night coding session, every business pitch, and every sleepless hour, driven by the single-minded conviction that I would prove my worth. I had transformed each jeer into fuel, each doubt into a step forward. And now, as I sat in my corner office with the city skyline sparkling behind me, the same person who had once laughed at my dreams was reaching out, wanting to partake in what I had built from scratch. In that moment, a quiet resolve settled over me, a determination not to let bitterness or obligation tether me to a past I'd long since outgrown. In the days that followed that fateful call, I immersed myself even deeper into the pulse of my business. Board meetings became my battlegrounds, where I presented not only financial forecasts but also a vision of relentless innovation. I witnessed our product scale new heights, and every investor's nod felt like a silent vindication against the scoffs of years gone by. My team and I celebrated small wins, each one a stepping stone that transformed skepticism into unwavering support. I became a frequent speaker at entrepreneurial events, sharing my journey from rejection to remarkable success. Each story I recounted was a tribute to the countless hours of sacrifice and the strength of character it took to rise above personal betrayal. Yet, amid the whirlwind of business triumphs and public acclaim, there remained a personal cross I could not ignore. That call from my ex-wife haunted me, not as an echo of regret, but as a stark reminder of the cost of giving everything to a relationship that ultimately left me with nothing but my own ambition. I spent long nights revisiting the memories of our shared past, the intimate conversations that once promised forever, now rendered hollow by her departure. I realized that her request for a share was less about the money and more about a desperate attempt to reclaim a semblance of the life she'd abandoned. But I'd learned that success wasn't about reconciling with those who had wronged me, it was about building something that belonged solely to me. One chilly evening, I sat at my desk reviewing the latest performance metrics when my phone buzzed again. This time, the message was from a mutual friend who had witnessed our former life together. "I heard she's trying again," the text read. It wasn't meant as judgment but as news, a confirmation that she was still clinging to remnants of a past that I had long left behind. I felt a bittersweet surge of both pity and relief. I had finally come to terms with the fact that her choices, though painful, were hers alone to bear. I wasn't going to let her financial need or her lingering regrets compromise the integrity of everything I'd built. With a calm clarity that had been honed over months of self-reflection, I decided that any offer to help would come strictly on my terms. I drafted a detailed proposal outlining clear repayment schedules, interest terms, and legal safeguards. This wasn't an act of charity, nor was it a desperate attempt to win back what we had lost. It was a business decision, a final assertion that my hard-won success was not up for grabs. I arranged to meet with her and our former best friend at a neutral venue, a quiet, upscale cafe that buzzed softly with the hum of distant conversation. I wanted the setting to reflect the professional boundaries I was determined to maintain. The meeting was tense and surreal. I sat across from them, my posture composed, while they fumbled with their words. My ex-wife's eyes flickered with a mixture of remorse and longing, while my old best friend avoided my gaze as if burdened by guilt. I listened as they explained their dire financial straits, the collapse of a risky venture, mounting debts, and a desperate hope that my success could bail them out. I asked questions, measured each response, and maintained an unyielding professionalism that belied the tumultuous history we shared. As the conversation progressed, I outlined my proposal with precision. "I'm willing to assist," I said steadily, "but this is strictly a business transaction. There will be formal agreements, clear terms, and repayment schedules. I'm not interested in revisiting the past or reopening old wounds." My voice was firm yet devoid of malice. I could sense that they were relieved by my clarity, even as the weight of their mistakes pressed down on the conversation. I wasn't offering them a second chance at our old life. I was setting boundaries for the new reality I had forged. After the meeting, I retreated to my office, where I spent hours reflecting on the choices I had made. I recalled the countless nights of relentless work that had transformed the startup from a fledgling idea into a thriving enterprise. I remembered the sting of her laughter, the gut-wrenching pain of betrayal, and the long, lonely journey of self-discovery that had led me here. Each memory was a testament to the fact that I had rebuilt my life on my own terms, that my worth was defined not by the approval of those who had once dismissed me, but by the strength I cultivated through adversity. In the weeks that followed, the financial arrangements were finalized with careful oversight. My ex-wife and former best friend began to meet their obligations, albeit reluctantly, while I continued to focus on expanding my business. With each quarterly report that showed steady growth, I felt a quiet affirmation that I had chosen the right path. My startup's valuation continued to climb, attracting new investors and opening doors to opportunities one had only dreamed of before. The success wasn't just in the numbers, it was in the way it redefined my identity. I was now a respected entrepreneur, a leader who had turned mocking laughter into a legacy of innovation. As the seasons changed, so too did my perspective on what it meant to forgive. I learned that forgiveness wasn't about erasing the past, it was about freeing oneself from the heavy burden of resentment. In private moments of introspection, I realized that clinging to bitterness would have only stifled the remarkable growth I had achieved. I began to forgive her, not out of weakness, but as a declaration of my newfound freedom. By releasing the hold that her actions once had on my heart, I allowed myself to fully embrace the abundant possibilities of the future. My days became a blend of strategic meetings, creative brainstorming sessions, and quiet moments of solitude when I'd sit by the window of my office, watching the city hustle below. Each moment was a reminder of the journey, a journey that had taken me from the depths of despair to the exhilarating heights of entrepreneurial success. I attended seminars, led workshops, and even started mentoring other aspiring founders. Sharing my story became a cathartic process, not to dwell on the past, but to illuminate the path forward for others facing similar trials. Every testimonial, every nod of approval from those I inspired, reinforced the truth that my worth was mine to define. One evening, after a particularly successful product launch that garnered national media attention, I stood on the stage at an industry conference, addressing a captivated audience. As I spoke about the trials and triumphs of building my startup from nothing, I felt a surge of pride, not just for the success I'd achieved but for the transformation I'd undergone. My words were laced with the quiet conviction of someone who had faced the worst and emerged stronger. I spoke of resilience, self-belief, and the importance of embracing one's own worth, and as I looked out at the faces in the audience, I knew that my story was resonating far beyond the confines of my personal journey. Later that night, as I walked through the city streets under a canopy of stars, I marveled at the path I had taken. The once crushing betrayal had become the impetus for a remarkable metamorphosis. I no longer felt defined by the laughter that had once mocked my dreams. Instead, I carried with me the unshakable knowledge that I had built something extraordinary, a legacy of innovation and perseverance that was entirely my own. The echoes of my ex-wife's derision were now nothing more than distant memories, reminders of a time when I had been unappreciated, and the pain of those days had been the fuel that ignited my ascent. In quiet moments of reflection, I allowed myself to wonder about the twists of fate that had brought me here. I recalled the early days of uncertainty, the endless obstacles, and the moments of raw vulnerability that had paved the way for every achievement. I recognized that every setback, every moment of doubt, had been an integral part of my growth. I had learned that success was not a destination but a journey, one marked by constant evolution and the courage to pursue one's dreams despite overwhelming odds. Now, as I stand on the brink of even greater opportunities, I feel an inner peace that comes from knowing I have reclaimed my destiny. I have turned pain into purpose and betrayal into the stepping stones of success. My startup is flourishing, my team is stronger than ever, and I am more determined to continue on this path of innovation and self-discovery. I understand that the past will always be a part of me, but it no longer dictates my future. I choose to let go of the bitterness and embrace the lessons it taught me. Lessons of resilience, self-reliance, and the transformative power of unwavering belief in oneself. As the final chapters of this journey unfold, I find myself filled with gratitude for every trial and every triumph. I have come to appreciate that the person who once laughed at my startup, who dismissed my dreams with a scoff, is now relegated to a distant memory, one that serves as a reminder of how far I've come. The success I now enjoy is a testament to the strength of my character and the endless possibilities that arise when you refuse to let others define your worth. I have built an empire out of determination and innovation, and with each new day, I continue to push the boundaries of what is possible. In closing, I reflect on the transformative journey that began with a mocking laugh and culminated in a thriving startup valued in the millions. I stand as a living testament to the power of resilience, a man who turned betrayal into a catalyst for change, who refused to be defined by the limitations others placed upon him. The sting of her laughter has faded into the background, replaced by the steady beat of my own heart, a heart that now beats in tune with a vision of success, freedom, and unyielding self-worth. This is the end of my story for now, a story of vision, struggle, and triumph, of giving everything only to have it taken away, and then building something extraordinary in its place. I continue forward, unburdened by the ghosts of the past, with the knowledge that my worth is not determined by the opinions of those who doubted me, but by the unwavering belief in my own potential. And as I look toward the future, I do so with a quiet confidence, knowing that every challenge is an opportunity, every setback a lesson, and every success a quiet celebration of the man I have become. I have learned that true victory is not measured by the wealth you accumulate or the accolades you receive, but by the strength with which you rise after every fall. My startup, once laughed at and dismissed, now stands as a monument to my determination, a beacon of hope for anyone who dares to dream against the odds. And while she may now want a share of what I've built, I know that my journey was never about sharing my worth with those who never recognized it in the first place. It was about proving to myself that I was enough, that I was capable of greatness, and that I could succeed without needing anyone's validation. This is my story, a story of pain transformed into power, of betrayal turned into an unyielding drive for success. And as I continue to write the chapters of my life, I do so with a heart full of gratitude, a spirit unbroken by past hurts, and a mind focused on the endless possibilities that lie ahead. Every day I remind myself that the best revenge is living well, and that true success is the quiet triumph of rising above adversity. I am proud of who I have become, and I look forward to a future filled with new challenges, new victories, and the continuous unfolding of a life defined by resilience, innovation, and the unwavering belief that I will always succeed, without her.